Well, new details this morning in the search for a missing mother and her 2 little girls in Colorado.
The husband of a pregnant Colorado woman confesses to murdering her and his 2 daughters. It's a story we've been following closely now for days.
He stood on his driveway in front of a local news camera 2 days after killing his family. He looked directly into the lens and he said, "Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. This house is not complete without anybody here. I need to see everybody again." The interviewer asked if he had a message for whoever might have taken them. He paused. He nodded solemnly. "Please bring them back. Hold that image."
Just come back. Like, if somebody has her, just please bring her back. I need to see everybody.
This camera and every word he just said. Shanann Razuchek was born in New Jersey and grew up in Aberdeen, North Carolina. She was the kind of person who filled a room, loud in the best way, visibly in love with her children, and relentlessly optimistic about the life she was building. She had struggled with lupus for years, a disease that complicated her pregnancies and shadowed every decision she made about her health. That she managed to have children at all was something she described as a miracle. She documented everything. Every milestone, every birthday, every ordinary Tuesday, posted to Facebook and Instagram for the community of followers who had come to feel like they knew her. Shanann Watts was, by every account, one of the most present and publicly loving mothers you could find. Bella Marie Watts was 4 years old. She had her mother's expressiveness, loud, dramatic, and funny. She asked questions about everything. She had started preschool. She was the kind of child who would walk into a room and immediately want to know who everyone was and what they were doing.
Well, one thing led to another, and 8 years later, we have 2 kids. We live in Colorado, and he's the best thing that has ever happened to me.
Celeste Catherine Watts was 3 years old. She was the quieter of the 2, the one who preferred to watch before she participated. She and Bella were rarely apart. In the hours that would come, that would not change. At the time of Shanann's death, she was 15 weeks pregnant with a son they had already named Nico. The family had planned to move. The nursery was ready. Chris Watts was 33 years old. Quiet, reserved, steady, or so people thought. He worked as an operator for Anadarko Petroleum, long shifts at oil sites east of their home in Frederick, Colorado. He and Shanann had met on Facebook in 2010, married in 2012, moved to Colorado to start over. The house they lived in cost close to $400,000. They had gone bankrupt in 2015, still owed on the mortgage, and had been carrying the financial weight of it ever since. From the outside, nothing looked wrong. From the inside, something had been building for months. Chris Watts had begun an affair with a coworker named Nicole Kessinger. He had not told Kessinger he was still married. He had not told Shanann he had been in contact with Kessinger at all. The night of August 12th, 2018, Shanann had been away in Phoenix, Arizona for a work conference. She arrived home in the early hours of August 13th, around 2 a.m., dropped off by her friend and coworker, Nicole Atkinson. Shanann had texted friends that night that she and Chris had been having serious problems. She had told them about the distance, the emotional withdrawal, the sense that he had already left the marriage in every way except officially. Her friends had urged her to talk to him when she got home. She did. What happened during that conversation would not become fully clear for 6 more months. At 5:17 a.m., a neighbor's surveillance camera captured Chris Watts backing his truck into the garage. A small thing, except that he never parked in the garage. He always parked on the street. The camera shows him walking back and forth across the driveway, carrying what appear to be heavy loads, loading them into the truck. Shanann's car was still in the garage. The children's car seats were still in the house.
5:17 in the morning, Chris comes out through the garage, and then he backs his truck into the driveway.
By 5:30, according to his own later account, he left for the work site. By mid-morning, Shanann had missed a scheduled doctor's appointment for the pregnancy. Nicole Atkinson, unable to reach her, drove to the house, rang the bell, knocked. Nothing. She called Chris. He told her the family was on a play date. Atkinson looked through the window. She could see Shanann's favorite shoes on the floor inside. At 1:40 p.m., Nicole Atkinson called the Frederick Police Department. She reported her friend missing. Officers were dispatched. Chris Watts arrived shortly after they did. The door was unlocked. Shanann's purse, her phone, her keys, all inside. The house was clean, orderly, quiet. Whatever had happened here in the hours before dawn, no one had been left behind to describe it. Police watched the neighbor's surveillance footage with Chris Watts present in the room. When the clip showed him loading his truck in the early morning dark, investigators noted his jaw tightened slightly. The investigators watched him perform fear and grief in the practiced way of a man who had spent the past several hours deciding how to perform fear and grief. 3 things didn't fit his story, and they noticed all 3 immediately. First, his demeanor. He was calm in a way that alarmed them. Second, the garage. A man who parks on the street every single day doesn't back his truck into the garage at 5 a.m. The one morning his family disappears. The footage made that look like concealment. Third, the car seats. He had told Nicole Atkinson the girls were on a play date, but he had loaded them into his truck without their car seats. You don't take 2 children aged 3 and 4 on a play date without car seats. You don't forget car seats. Unless the car seats weren't needed, because the children weren't going to be getting out of the truck alive. Investigators also asked to look at Shanann's phone. Chris said she must have taken it, but Nicole Atkinson had watched her set it on the kitchen counter when she came in at 2 a.m. She remembered it clearly because she had said goodnight to Shanann right there in the kitchen.
So he tells you everything's normal, she's on a play date.
Like in my mind, I couldn't figure out why she'd go on a play date without her car.
There were text messages sent to Chris in the last hour before they went silent. Those messages are one of the most devastating pieces of evidence in this entire case. On August 14th, Chris Watts spoke to a Denver news affiliate on camera. He stood on the driveway where the cameras had gathered, and he gave the performance that would be replayed millions of times. He cried. He pleaded for his family's return. He said,
I need to see everybody. I need to see everybody again. This house is not complete without anybody here. Please bring them back.
Watching the interview, several behavioral analysts noted that he almost never said he was scared they were hurt. He said he wanted them home. He said the house was empty. What he conspicuously did not say, in any version, was that he was afraid something terrible had happened to them. August 15th, the FBI joined the search. Chris Watts was administered a polygraph examination. He failed it. The same day, before investigators formally confronted him with the results, he asked to speak to his father, Ronnie, privately. What he said to Ronnie was not recorded in full. What is known is that when he emerged, he agreed to sit down with agents from the FBI and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and he confessed. He admitted he had killed Shanann. He said she had smothered their daughters that morning, that he had found Bella dead and had caught Shanann killing Celeste and had strangled Shanann in a rage. He told investigators where the bodies were. He marked the location on a photograph of the oil field. Officers drove out there that same night. They found Shanann first. She was in a shallow grave on the grounds of the Anadarko oil field near Hudson, Colorado, 40 miles from their house, buried by a man who had driven past search parties and TV cameras to get there. Bella and Celeste were nearby. They had been placed separately inside crude oil storage tanks. The openings of those tanks were 8 inches in diameter. Each child had been forced through an 8-inch opening. 3 days after Chris Watts had stood on his driveway and asked someone, anyone, to please bring his family home, investigators found out exactly where they had been the whole time. Now the text messages. In the records pulled from SHANANN's phone, the phone that had disappeared from the kitchen counter, investigators found a series of messages she had sent to Chris in the weeks before her death. She was worried. She could feel him withdrawing. She told him she was scared for their marriage. She told him she needed him to fight for them. In one message, sent during the weeks she had been noticing his distance, she wrote, "I just want to know who I married." In the hours before her death, she had also sent him a text that she was coming home and that they needed to talk. He had not responded. In a prison interview 6 months later, Watts would say that when she told him that night, he would never see the children again if they separated. Something in him, in his words, snapped. The autopsy of 4-year-old Bella found bite marks on her tongue, lacerations inside her mouth, and pinpoint hemorrhages on her scalp. The district attorney said these indicated she had fought for her life. He had confessed. He had led them to the bodies.
The fact that he murdered his wife to his own father.
He had been arrested and charged with 9 counts, including 5 counts of first-degree murder. And yet, the version of events he had given investigators was a lie, not about the fact of the deaths, but about who had killed the children and why. He had told them SHANANN killed Bella and Celeste. He had framed himself as a grieving father who had acted in a moment of unhinged rage after watching his wife murder their daughters. It was a story designed to make him sympathetic, a crime of passion, not a premeditated family annihilation. Investigators did not believe it. The forensic evidence did not support it. And 6 months later, in a 5-hour prison interview on February 18, 2019, Chris Watts told the truth for the first time. He said he had smothered Celeste himself in the back seat of his truck. He said he had done it while Bella watched. He said Bella had asked him, "Is the same thing going to happen to me as Cece?" He said he wasn't sure whether he had answered her. He said he then smothered Bella with the same blanket. He said Bella had fought. He said he could still hear her voice every time he closed his eyes. "Daddy, no!" He said those were her last words.
Right now is what happened to SHANANN, Bella, and Celeste.
I want them back home,
But you know they're not coming back home.
Before we get to the sentencing and what Chris Watts has said since, I want to take 5 seconds. If this channel is producing the kind of true crime coverage you want more of, subscribing takes 2 seconds, and it genuinely helps. Now, back to Weld County Courthouse. November 2018, 85 days after his family's bodies were found. Chris Watts stood in Weld County District Court and entered a guilty plea to 9 counts, including 5 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of unlawful termination of a pregnancy for killing SHANANN and Nico, and 3 counts of tampering with a deceased human body. The guilty plea had been reached as part of a deal with prosecutors. In exchange for the plea, the death penalty was taken off the table. SHANANN's parents, Frank and Sandra Rzucek, addressed the court. Frank Rzucek looked at Chris Watts and said, "You took everything from us. You destroyed our lives, our daughter's life, our grandchildren's lives, our unborn grandson's life." Sandra Rzucek was not able to finish her statement. She had to stop. The courtroom held that silence for several seconds. At the sentencing, Watts was asked if he had anything to say. He spoke briefly. He said he was sorry. He said he thought about it every day. He was transferred out of Colorado shortly after sentencing, moved to a maximum security prison in Wisconsin, reportedly for his own safety. He has been there since. In June 2021, letters Watts had written to a prison pen pal became public. In them, he revealed additional details that had never been disclosed. He said he had planned the killings for several weeks beforehand. It was not a spontaneous moment, not a snap decision after an argument. He said he had administered OxyContin to SHANANN in an attempt to end her pregnancy, believing that if she lost the baby, it would make leaving her easier. He said he had first tried to smother his daughters in their beds at home before they were placed in the truck. He had tried to kill them twice. The first attempt failed. He completed the second. Go back to that driveway. The camera. The man in front of it. Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. He had buried Shanann's body less than 12 hours before that interview. He had placed Bella and Celeste's bodies inside oil tanks less than 12 hours before that interview. Because he was calculating precisely, carefully, what the man in his situation was supposed to look and sound like. He had practiced the emotional register. He had studied his own affect. And what investigators saw, watching that interview even at the time, was a man performing grief he did not feel for an audience he needed to convince. Forensic behavioral analyst Joe Navarro, who studied the interview, pointed to a specific moment. When the reporter asked Chris if he had a message for whoever might have taken his family, he paused, nodded slowly, and then said, "Please bring them back." That pause, that nod. In Navarro's analysis, those were the gestures of a man buying time to produce the correct emotional response, not someone who had already produced it involuntarily. A man whose family had genuinely just gone missing doesn't pause to compose himself when asked to beg for their return. He just begs. The pause is the tell. That pause, in the middle of a driveway interview watched by millions of people, is the single most honest moment Chris Watts produced in the entire 72 hours between when he killed his family and when he confessed to it. Shanann Razuchek Watts was 34 years old. She had lived with a chronic illness, fought to have the children she wanted, and built a life with a man who had decided, weeks in advance, to end it. Bella was 4. She had started to lose her baby teeth. Celeste was 3. She and Bella shared a room. Nico was 15 weeks old. He had a name. Chris Watts is serving 5 consecutive life sentences at a maximum security prison in Wisconsin. He has made no further formal public statement since the 2019 prison interview. In the only other recorded conversation with investigators that has been released, he said, "Right now I'd have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and more than likely a 1-month-old son, and a beautiful wife, and right now it's just me." He said that in a federal prison, after telling investigators in the same interview that he had heard Bella say, "Daddy, no," and had kept going anyway. The words are correct. The words are exactly what a man who had done what he did is supposed to say. They mean nothing. They never did.